Hi, welcome to the review of the Hardcore Hardware MILF number 4. So full disclosure, I got sent this knife by Hardcore Hardware to review. I've dealt with them a couple of times before in that sense. I don't often take the free stuff, but they're an Australian company. This isn't a 100% Australian made knife. It's made overseas and then finished in Australia. I don't really have much more info on it than that, except that they use first world production facilities. That's what they told me to tell you, so there you go. But it's a very sturdy, overbuilt line of knife. The rest of the MILF series are available. Not all of them have flippers. There is a thumb stud model as well. And there's a whole different bunch of blade shapes, which I'll probably roll across the screen right now. I opted for the Wharncliffe one because the Wharn gives me the horn. Anyway, let's take this down to tabletop and do some reviewage of it. Alrighty, so here we have the Hardcore Hardware Australia MILF knife. So crack that bad boy open. It's a flipper knife. It is on bronze phosphor washers, so it is very smooth for a bronze phosphor washing knife. Now, it takes a little bit of a minute to get it this smooth. A little bit of oil and a whole bunch of this, and sooner or later it'll start opening every single time. Once you get the knack of the flipper, it is a bit more of a just put pressure towards the knife rather than just straight down. So towards the knife and it opens every time. No wrists needed, anything like that. Even with lighter sort of misflipped flips, do just fine. So there you have it. It's got a G10 display side. There's a few different option colors available. It's got a stainless steel lock side. It has got an S30V blade, which is very thickly ground, 4.5 millimeter S30V blade, hollow ground in a Wharncliffe, so dead flat blade there, like a true Wharncliffe, with a pretty thick, stout drop tip you can see there, all the way down to the tip where suddenly it does become rather thin. Still not, I wouldn't say fragile just because of this extreme geometries, but definitely still capable of some fine poking tasks. So the knife is a heavy one. This is a 212-gram knife, so that's in the rough realm of about 7 and a bit ounces. I think I'll flash it on screen if I'm too far wrong, but about 7 ounces, think. So it's a substantial amount of knife to have in your pocket. I'll just run it up next to some other sort of comparable knives. This is the kind of knife that you know you're going to like this. This is either your type, you're this kind of knife people, or you're not. And that's as simple as that, or you're just like me and you'll give anything a go. But it's kind of made for that sort of super overbuilt kind of soldier knife, or, you know, just knife for people who are going to give it a bit of abuse, because you can certainly abuse this knife. I've had it for a few months now and it has been abused. It's been abused in many ways. So it's been cut and salt tested. So it's abused in that way. And also I've abused the lock by battening with it. And I've abused the sort of the structure of the knife by battening with it, I guess. That's all I got, battening with it. And just doing some pretty decent cutting tasks with it. I've taken it with me to work. I work in sort of a first responder type environment, so I do a bit of heavy cutting from time to time. And I'll just run it next to some other knives that are sort of from that genus of knife. So this is the Zero Tolerance 0220. Pretty much the same size of knife. This weighs about 30 grams less, but it would weigh about the same if it was stainless steel rather than titanium. It costs significantly more though. This is about $330 in Australia. Americans, I know your prices are awesome compared to ours. Feel free to point it out, but I'm already aware, so that's fine. This is about $260, which is still not cheap by any stretch. But you can sort of see the overbuilt qualities in them. So huge pivots, thick lock bars, just in general. This one's probably even a bit more robust due to the use of the bronze phosphor washers. Look at that big thick lock bar, very, very well engaged. Not a single sign of looseness. It's tight as a bank vault, this thing. Very, very overbuilt. Overbuilt like the old ZTs used to be before they started to get a bit more svelte. Like this is quite svelte for a ZT compared to like some of the stuff from the early days. What else? Another sort of big, super strong knife, or super tough knife, the Benchmade, what's this, the Osborne Contago. So this is like a big sort of tactical knife, a bit lighter than both of these. Let's just check this one on the scale. The Contago weighs in at, what are we looking there, 167 grams, so a little bit lighter than both of these. Just a little bit less in the handle, a bit more plastic, a little less metal, that sort of stuff. So those are two knives. So this is, this is like a 4-inch blade, that's a 3.5-inch blade, this is a 3.5-inch blade with a bit of a forward finger choil, or at least decent sharpening choil. Some other knives you might be familiar with, the SOG Vulcan, they're another sort of knife, I guess similar vein perhaps, and they're the Cold Steel American Lawman, kind of like the same purpose but a lot more lightweight, a really, really good option, the American Lawman. What else do we have? A bigger knife, but a lighter knife again, weighing at 136 grams, the Spyderco Police. Really good size and weight value there. K390 steel. This is a lot more, this is a completely different purpose knife in my opinion. Even though it's called the Police, which denotes heavy duty first response, it is much more of a slicing tool. This is like a big brown guy said really well in my comments, this is like a race car knife. Like it's like a super sports car, like a Ducati, like just for awesome cutting over and over again. Excellent. Different purpose, but these are some size comparisons anyway. And lastly, next to my Spidey Chef, there we go, crack that bad boy open. Love the Spidey Chef, any excuse to bring it out. So anyway, what do I like most about this knife? Well, I like the overbuilt nature of it. I wouldn't want to have more than a couple of knives like this, but you know what, it is nice to have something like this in your collection if you are a collector like me, which I am. You know, I'm a user collector, so I use all the knives that I collect, but you know, so I do like to have different tactile experiences, and this is probably one of the most well-built knives I've got. It's just completely solidly put together, from the huge pivots to the you know, three standoffs, the pocket clips, you know, big and hefty, while still being completely practical. The big liner lock, the huge thick blade that is actually ground fairly well. It's a really, really good, hard, you know, hardcore feeling using knife. It's, you know, it's definitely gonna not be for everyone, but if you are after something like this, if you think the ZT's knives have sort of softened up a little bit since they've started making things look like this, then this might be the knife for you, without a doubt. I love the flipping action. For a knife on bronze phosphor washers, it does really, really well once it's broken in. No issues whatsoever with that. Done really well. They've got good G10, so it's a good traction G10, not too rough, and they've made the wise decision of, I like the frame lock. They've done the same pattern, but the G10 on the frame lock side sometimes makes it a bit of a pocket killer. Not so much. So really, really good, nice G10, like comfortable in hand, tactile. Another great thing about this knife, it has a nice neutral grip. Like it's not nothing too crazy like, well, you know, I don't generally buy knives with crazy grips, but say even this SOG Vulcan, you know, it's a bit jazzier. It's got a couple of little scallops here. You know, that one's not too bad either, but yeah, I like it when the knife doesn't give me too much to work with, just so you can work with it any way you like, if you know what I'm saying. So what else do we have here? What else do I like about the knife? I like the steel. S30V is just fine. It's a fine steel, not too bad at all. This one seems to rust resist fairly well, even though it is a stonewash finish. I did a rust test with this knife, and it got a bit of pitting here, not pitting, bit of surface rust here, but it sanded off quick smart, so that was good too. And it's got, what else has it got? It's got a really, that's what I was getting to. For a blade that is like that, and like that, like it is actually a pretty capable slicer. Like, and I'm not saying it's gonna cut anywhere near as good as like this. These knives are made for slicing. This is made for cutting. But you know, it's gonna do about as well as like any other hollow ground knife. It's really thin behind the edge. Yeah, it graduates really quickly up to a thick, you know, chopping blade, but for things like cutting cardboard, that's what you need. That's all you need. You need a bit of a thinness behind the edge, and then it doesn't really matter how thick it gets, in my experience. Anyway, yeah, if you're going to be cutting like grapes and tomatoes and things like that, it's probably not going to be the best choice for you in the kitchen, but really it'll cut just fine. You put it in something, rip down, it'll make a line, no problems at all. The knife's got great integrity. I strength tested it by battening with it and doing a few things like that, and no worries at all with the battening side of it, with getting rattly afterwards. Absolutely no problem at all. Very high integrity build here. So what do I not like about the knife as much? Well, for a start, it's quite wide, so wide across the blade. It's like Spyderco wide, so like, where's the Spidey Chef? So that's the Spidey Chef. It's actually even a little bit wider than that. I know it's because of the Wharncliffe. Wharncliffes generally, you know, they're never going to make a Wharncliffe that just goes like, yep, straight down. They're going to have this bit of bulk up here for strength. So it is part of the Wharncliffe experience, generally having a little bit more. Like you look at even the Delica Wharncliffe, it's a bit of a more hockey puck shaped knife. That's something that doesn't sit 100% well with me, because I do like having more space next to my knife in my pocket for, say, like my phone or something like that, you know? It's, you know, that's what it is. That's the Rockstead Heisen on the background of my phone. Every time I get bored and start browsing the knife sites, I remember, nah, you're saving for the Heisen, dudes. because that's what I'm saving for. So yeah, it's a little bit thick in the pocket in terms of this way and in this way, just for an everyday carrier, for like someone who gets around in jeans or pants. That's compounded by the clip isn't super deep carry. It's I wouldn't mind if they made like a loop over clip like that to deep carry a little bit more. You probably would still need it a bit wide, so it's got the width right at the top here, just to balance this quite heavy knife out in your pocket. But yeah, I wouldn't mind a deep carry clip. Just in terms of carryability, hey, you know when you see this, it's not going to be no Almar Falcon, is it? So, but there you go. Just certainly going to bring that up because it's definitely something that I would prefer. I'd love for them to see them make true like little EDC knives that are still hardcore in their own way. So there you go. What else? The pivot screws are a bit soft. So I stripped them when and you know what? I'm not sure if they're soft or there's just Loctite. Anyway, disassemblers beware. I didn't try and disassemble. I just tried to loosen the pivot and it stripped. So I can still move it, but it started to strip a little bit. So if you got this one, either get onto them and work out what their advice is to take it down, or whether they just say send it in. But they do say in the literature to adjust. You can adjust the pivot by swiveling this, and just be careful if you're going to do that. That's the only thing, because I'm not sure if this is soft or my tools are too hard or whatever. But this gave rather than my Torx wrenches, so there you go. But there, that's something that's probably going to bother you if you are a bit of a disassembler or a tweaker. Just be careful. Like, there might be some Loctite in there. I frankly haven't taken this down, so just it's just something so that you certainly know before you do it. You don't want to ruin your knife because it might void your warranty. Seek advice before you do anything like that. There should be little need to take it apart because it's got washers and it's all fairly indestructible, but we all like to take our knives down when that rust does build up around here, just so you can get it out and whatnot. And it should be alright as a knife owner, just like it should be alright as a car owner to service your car yourself, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, there's that as well. But overall, those are about the only things that I really would say that I disliked about the knife. The rest really does come down to a matter of taste. This, as I said, isn't everyone's knife. Some people see these knives and are just like, huh, that's a joke, that's ridiculous. It's Medford-esque. Not quite there with Medford. It's not 1/4 inch thick or anything crazy, but it's definitely Medford light. Like, it certainly could be. You either like Medford type knives or you don't. And that's, it's not something you're going to need a review to tell you, really. You're going to see this and be like, not for me. But if you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh, I like knives like that, but I want to know if this one's a well-done one, then yes, it absolutely is a well-done one. It's comfortable in hand. It's really well made, so it's not all sort of talk and no walk kind of thing. You can actually do quite harsh tasks with it, and it will actually do those harsh tasks really, really well. So yeah, look into Hardcore Hardware and look into these knives. If you're after something different than perhaps what ZT are offering now, if your ZTs are feeling a little bit too high maintenance, like a little bit too sort of race car-ish, and you want something that's more of a Humvee, then Hardcore Hardware might be a decent brand for you to look up. But yeah, I've been impressed with their work so far. It is kind of for me. I don't hate carrying a knife like this. I actually kind of enjoy it from time to time. Really change it up. And if you're after changing up your everyday user or your work user or whatever, it's definitely a good place to stop. In terms of value-wise, I think it's about spot on. It's not made in Australia, like they don't cut the pieces and put the handles together. I know that much. So yeah, there is some overseas elements to it. But yeah, I've been told it's not third world, I'm told first world. So take from that what you wish. And yeah, if you want, I guess look them up or ask them directly if that really matters to you. But as is kind of my attitude, it doesn't really matter where it's from as long as the quality's there, and it seems like the quality's here. I mean, the best Spydercos, in my opinion, are the ones made in Taiwan, so there you go. Taiwan's a perfectly legitimate country to make knives, so I don't know if it's there, I don't know where it is. But anyway, maybe they can jump into the comments or whatever, just ask them. But yeah, apart from that, I guess slight bit of ambiguity, there's really no real value issue here at all. It's about what you expect for this much steel, of a good steel, like a good powder steel, and a lot of handle and a lot of everything. Titanium would be nice for sure, but I don't think we're quite there yet. I think they're still quite a new company in the folding knife world, so I'm sure we'll get there in the end if these sell well, and I think they will. Definitely appealing to the fans that like this sort of stuff. Anyway, guys, enough talk from me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next edition of Cedric and Ada Adventures in Knife Pornography. See you later.